Hello everybody, it's Tsuki and welcome back. Yeah, today I want to talk about Astrologian. So in case you missed it yesterday, I posted a very long video on my thoughts on White Mage. It was like 55 minutes or something ridiculous like that. And today I wanted to talk about Astrologian and tomorrow hopefully talk about Scholar. But this video should be significantly shorter than the White Mage one because there isn't a whole lot to actually talk about on Astrologian. There's a few changes to Astrologian and their abilities, and we also just have to talk about their abilities. We don't have to talk about the role action systems and the stats as in-depth as I did on my White Mage video. Yeah, should be a significantly shorter video. So let's just get into it. Like how I started off the White Mage video, I want to talk about any changes to any of the abilities that we had back in Heavensward. And yeah, so the first thing is, I guess, Malefic and Combust. Just like most of the jobs, gets consolidated. So Malefic automatically upgrades to Malefic 2 if you're a high enough level, and Combust upgrades to Combust 2, which is, it's a little unfortunate because it makes DPSing on Astrologian all the more stale. You know, you should just throw up Combust and then you spam Malefic for 30 seconds until you have to reapply it, or spam Gravity if it's an AoE situation. We did get a new ability at 62 that does go towards our DPS, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. We got a new ability, Undraw. I'm pretty sure you could have made a macro to click off a card you had, but now you have an official ability at Square Enix gave us. And basically, you draw a card, and if you don't like the card, you don't want to Royal Road it or do any of the various things you can do with the card, you can throw it away with this, which is pretty nice. Diurnal Sect and Nocturnal Sect saw some changes. So they're basically the same thing, you know, they still reduce enmity. You can still only have one up at a time. You still can't change them in battle. Except Diurnal Sect now, instead of having the 5% attack speed, it now has 10% healing potency. And Nocturnal Sect had its healing potency increased to 15%. So you're getting quite a bit of passive healing on Astrologian, which makes its base heals really powerful, actually. Now that I think about it, so yeah, it's actually pretty insane to think about. I mean, if you think about it, it's like if you have Nocturnal Sect up, it's basically like having an infinite Divine Seal up. So yeah, it's pretty crazy to really think about just how much healing power that is in comparison to the other two healers. And it makes Scholar look all the more in dire need of some changes. We'll get to Scholar tomorrow. Definitely looking forward to that one. Another huge change, Aspected Benefic had its MP cost dramatically increased. It now costs the same amount as Helios, which is a little insane to me. I don't know if I really value this single target healing ability as much as an AoE ability that, I mean, if you hit 3 people with Helios, that's 24,000 potency, or 2400 potency. Wow, I cannot math today. So I don't know. This change was, I see it as because Benefic 2 and Benefic 1 have smaller casts costs, I guess, than Cure and Cure 2 do. And it was always like that since the beginning of Heavensward. And the reason why this was the case initially was because Benefic and Benefic 2 and Helios as well had slightly less potencies than their White Mage counterparts, you know, Cure, Cure 2, and Medica. But when they actually buffed it so that they have the same Cure potency as those 3 abilities on White Mage, they didn't actually change the MP costs. So I guess this is kind of a balancing thing for that, I guess, making Aspect Benefit cost that much, but that is insane. Like, you can cast like 3 Benefics in the same amount as an Aspect of Benefic, which is, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like they kind of should probably tone this back a bit. Now, Nocturnal Sect Aspect Benefit is insane. So it got its cure potency increased to 200. It used to be like 190 or something like that, and its barrier basically doubled. So it was 100 and what, 30%, I think, back I don't know. It got buffed to 170% though, like a couple patches uh, before like 4 point or 3.4 or something like that. So now it's 250%, which is insane to think about because uh, at Loquium is 100%, right? And then if you crit at Loquium, it's 200%. This is 250% all the time, and it's instant cast. So I mean, I still think ad Loquium is slightly better if it crits, but I mean, this is just consistently better all of the time. Plus it's instant cast. Plus it costs less MP too. I think ad Loquium at level 70 is like 1800 or something like that. It's insane. But yeah, I feel like if they were going to increase the MP cost by that much, I get that Nocturnal Sect's effect is really powerful and it's insanely good for tank busters and everything like that. But I feel like they should have buffed the regen, the Diurnal Sect version as well if they were going to increase it that much. Honestly, I feel like they should just tone back the MP costs, maybe a few hundred, and also tone back the shield to like 200% instead of 250, because 250% is just, I mean, it's insane, and it's amazing to have. Like, you cast this before Storm Splitter, it does like absolutely nothing sometimes, depending on the cooldowns that the tank uses. But I don't know. I don't really feel like you need that powerful of a shield all the time. And I think 200% for a couple hundred MP costs off would be a fair change. But we'll see if they actually change this. I have a pretty strong feeling that they probably won't touch this. But it would be nice because this is a main contributing factor to the fact that Astros are having a pretty hard time with MP now compared to back in Heavensward. But yeah, so I don't think they actually changed. Oh wait, Sinistry. That's another big one. That's basically all they changed though, other than all the abilities they lost. But Sinistry, it basically lost the healing potency bonus. Instead, it got split off into Largis basically. So they increased healing potency by 20% for 20 seconds. This was basically the second effect of Sinistry. So it basically got split into this separate ability that's in the role action system, Largis. So theoretically, if you really wanted to, you could cast Sinistry and Largis at the same time and still have the old Heavensward Sinistry. But I am glad that they kind of split this apart because this still works. Basically, Sinistry still works if you want to cast it on, you know, the tank and just do 40% extra healing, I guess, on them for single target heals and stuff like that. So it's actually really good for that still, as well as healing 2 targets at once, which is really good when you're healing the tank and the off tank at the same time. But now, I mean, back in Heavensward when you had Largis' effect combined with Sinistry, it was a little much. You know, it was a little too much. You know, you never really needed that much power for 20 seconds, especially. So I like having the ability to kind of split the two abilities and just kind of pick and choose which one is better. This is obviously Sinistry is pretty good for healing 2 targets as well as just focusing 1 target, whereas Largis, you know, you can, you know, use it for AoE healing as well, and as well as for regens and stuff like that. So I actually do like the change that they decided to split these 2 abilities from each other. Still think Divine Seal was better though for White Mage cases, but you know, whatever. Malefic 2, I guess, was another one. Had its potency reduced by 20. Although one you could get Malefic 3 at 64, I think, you know, it goes up. So technically this is only a 20 potency increase, but it's 40 potency because they nerfed Malefic 2, technically. And that's basically all of the changes to the current existing Astrologian toolkits. Now as for things they lost Exalted Detriment because now you can cross-class Asuna, which I already ranted about that in my White Mage video. They lost Estella because now you can take Break instead. I mean, Estella was actually a pretty cool animation and a pretty cool name too. It's a real shame that it was never used, so I understand why it's no longer in the game. And I think actually all they lost after that was Disable, which is a real shame because I totally missed Disable. So if you don't remember what Disable did, excuse me, If you don't remember what Disable did, I'm pretty sure it reduced attack match or attack potency of the target for like 6 seconds, and it basically acts kind of like how Reprisal acts for tanks now. And I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of giving Reprisal or giving up Disable and having Reprisal be a tank ability. Tanks already have defensive cooldowns, and I feel like you should be spreading out the defensive cooldowns around all of the roles, really. And I feel like Reprisal should have just been kept as Disable, and that should have been thrown in the cross role system or the role action system, and we should have just kept Asuna on all 3 jobs instead. I would have liked that, really, because it just feels bad knowing that as a healer you no longer have the ability to throw down the Disable. You no longer have the ability to throw down Virus during the big attacks. You now have to rely on the tank to do it. You have to rely on the DPS to do it, which is, I don't know. I really liked, because healers are technically the ones paying attention the most to those sorts of things, right? And healers are the ones who can benefit the most from knowing when those are going to go out. So I don't know, I feel like they should have kept Disable as a role action for healers rather than changing it to Reprisal and giving it to tanks, but you know, it is what it is. And I'm pretty sure that covers basically everything that changed and that they lost. So real quickly, role action system. We already talked about everything here on White Mage, and basically it's the same mentality. Usually I take the same abilities as White Mage, so if you want to hear my thoughts on the role action system in general, you should watch the White Mage video. But now we can talk about the new stuff that they got in Stormblood, and there's quite a bit of good stuff here. Actually, I guess I should probably talk about the arrow. I'll talk about that later. So let's talk about the new stuff. So Earthly Star. This has an extremely long, tooltip, but basically Earthly Star is a ridiculously huge ability. Like, let me just go cast it right now, just so you can see. So you throw it down. It's actually a 30 yalms. So it's huge. It's actually really big. So it is 30 yalms, right? I'm not making that up. Yeah, it's 30 yalms. Wait, that's not the radius. That's the range. I don't know. It's about the same as a Medica, I'd like to say. So it's not actually 30 yalms, but it is a pretty big. It's much bigger than Asylum. But anyways, it's a pretty big effect, and it kind of acts as our equivalent to White Mage's size. It has the same 60-second cast time. The only difference is that it needs to be timed in order to get its full potency. You need to have it sit for 10 seconds in order to get its full potency, or you can cast it off immediately and get a weaker version of it. But basically, let's open up the tooltip again. So basically, it's 150 or 540 potency, cure potency initially, and then it goes up to 720. So that's really big. Yeah, like cure 3 is 600. No, it's 550 potency. So this is bigger than cure 3. This is like the biggest heal all at once possible in the game right now. I'm pretty sure. Like, disregarding all regens, even Medica too, I think totals up to 700 potency. So 720 potency all at once. This is an insane healing cooldown. And it's got a fair range. Like Cure 3 has only like a 6 yalm radius, right? This has like pretty much the range of a normal AoE healing ability. So it's actually really good for healing. But it also has a 200 potency damage on it if you let it sit for 10 seconds. Otherwise, it's only 150 potency. So not as much damage as the size, and also doesn't have the MP attached to it. The MP regained from it. But in a very insane heal, like 720. That is again like the biggest instant heal in the game currently, I believe. Other than like Benediction, I guess, but that doesn't really count. So yeah, this is a pretty amazing healing ability, and it also does some damage. So you can throw this down for big pulls and use it both as a kind of a crutch. So I mean, 720 potency heal on the tank whenever it goes off, and you can set it off to go off manually, or it'll just go off on its own after 20 seconds of you setting it down. And you know, it's great for when you need to throw out gravities, and you know the tank's dipping low. You just time this off, and 720 potency heal on the plus 200 damage to all the enemies, just like that. It's actually a pretty satisfying ability. The only problem is, for whatever reason, the damage on this, like if we go to a dummy, so I can demonstrate this, the damage on it, you see the heal pop up, you know, and it'll say like Earthly Star or Dominant Star, whatever, and you'll see the heal pop up, but the damage actually shows up as like one of the dot numbers. So yeah, you'll see here, you get those kind of like red numbers that kind of just, you know, pop up as you would a dot. So if I throw down Combust, you'll see, you know, that's kind of the same number that shows up. So it's kind of hard to see the damage, and I don't know. I feel like they should probably change this so that you can see the damage as like a normal ability, like a size would. I don't know. It's just kind of weird that that's just kind of the way they chose to have the damage show up on this particular ability. But yeah, it's actually a pretty nice ability. It's one of the better healing cooldowns, I think. It is technically a healing cooldown. I mean, it's a pretty big heal. Another thing that kind of bothers me about it is it's really just kind of a minuscule thing. It doesn't really change the ability in any way. Is that the targeting thing is really small. You know, like if you are to put down, you know, Asylum or Sacred Soil or Shadow Flare, any targeted AoE, you get the full radius, but for whatever reason, you throw this down and it's only this small portion, and it's not like, oh, this small portion is more powerful than the rest of it. No, it's all the same thing. So I'm not exactly sure why that is, and it's not like it progressively grows bigger or anything. That's just how it is. So yeah, I actually really like this ability. It's really cool. It's pretty super satisfying. As my friend put it, it's a time bomb basically. It's a time heal as well. More so a heal than a bomb actually. Malefic 3. Again, we kind of briefly touched on this. Just more damage. Minor Arcana. So this is actually a really interesting one. This gives us 2 new cards to work with, and it's its own thing, you know. So you draw a card. Say you don't want the card, you know, you don't want to Royal Road it, or you actually want to, you know, store this. You throw out Minor Arcana and you get either the Lord or the Lady. It's 50% chance. It's completely random which one you get. And basically, the Lord of the Crowns will be a 300 potency single target damage ability, and the Lady of the Crowns is a 500 potency single target heal. And both are instant cast, just like how you'd use a card normally. So yeah, it's actually, you know, it's actually a really nice ability. Both have very nice practical uses. Always nice to get a little more damage. Surprisingly, I actually thought I would value the Lord of the Crowns more, but Lady of the Crowns is actually really nice to have. You know, having another instant cast 500 potency heal is actually really nice, and it's actually saved my skin a lot, or I guess I should say saved a party member's skin a lot, because you know, they take unexpected damage, stand in something, get hit by something, whatever. Lady of the Crowns is actually really helpful for that. And also just because mobs are hitting really hard. Especially after you get into Bardam's Medal and all the leveling dungeons after that. Having Lady of the Crowns to help you out definitely is, it can be a lifesaver. So I really like Lady of the Crowns as well as Lord of the Crowns. They both have their practical uses there. So the last ability we get at level 70 is Sleeve Draw. So this sits on a 2-minute cooldown, and the tooltip is kind of confusing for a lot of people. You know, they'll read it and be like, what does this actually mean? Basically, it does exactly what it says it does. It does draw, it does Royal Road, it does spread, and it gives you a Minor Arcana all at once. So let me go use these cards that I have spread and in my Minor Arcana slot, just so you can see this in effect. So you can also see, even though I have spread on cooldown. Like I'll even draw on cooldown. Despite the fact that these are on cooldown, if I use sleeve draw, it won't even matter. They'll still give me all of those slots. And you might not have seen it, but I didn't have a Royal Road effect. Now I do. I have the spread Royal Road effect, the expanded Royal Road effect, I should say. So basically what Sleeve Draw it does is it gives you all 4 slots, basically. It fills all 4 slots, and now it won't, a very important thing is it doesn't overwrite your slots at all. So like if you have a balance in your spread slot and you have a Lady of the Crowns in your minor arcana slot and you use Sleeve Draw, it's not going to replace those. Those get to stay, thankfully. And it'll just give you a Royal Road effect and a draw effect, basically. It's a cool ability. There are a couple issues that you can run into with this. Namely, if you get a shitty card in your spread, it really sucks because you have to use the card in your spread after that, and you have to find a way to use it in a way that doesn't like overwrite maybe a good card you got. Because keep in mind, when you sleeve draw, you're also getting a card in your draw slot. So if you had like the expanded Royal Road effect and you got like the balance and you threw it up, and then all of a sudden you have like an ewer or something terrible like that, you have to like find a place to use it, right? And after you use it, you then have to wait another 30 seconds before you can spread again. So it really does kind of suck if you get a really terrible card in your spread shot or your spread slot. So I do try to kind of make sure I get something nice, like an arrow or a balance, preferably one of those two. I'll even take a freaking bowl or an ewer if I can, and then before I use sleeve draw. Or you can take the gamble and hope that you get that 1 in 3 chance of getting the balance or the arrow, which you could, or you could get stuck with the spear or the ewer. That also sucks. So yeah, sleeve draw it's nice. It's another chance at some balances, because you can get the balance from your draw slot, you can get the balance from your spread slot if you want to take that risk. But yeah, and also you can refill your arcana, minor arcana, if you get another Lady of the Crowns or Lord or Lady, and it's a nice ability. You really don't build off of Astrologian, so like nothing really changes about Astrologian. It feels the same. It plays pretty much the same. You get a few cool new toys to play with. Basically, you get something else to manipulate your cards into with Minor Arcana, which is really nice. And then you get Sleeve Draw that basically gives you more cards in a smaller space of time. Basically, you get to draw more cards. So basically, going into Stormblood, Astrologian doesn't really change all that much, really. It just, you get to use more cards and you get something else to manipulate your cards with, and you get more damage from Malefic, and you get Earthly Star, which is actually a pretty cool ability. Earthly Star is basically the newest ability that really changes Astrologian. It's really the only ability that really feels new on Astrologian. I mean, you can argue Minor Arcana is too, but I feel like Earthly Star is really the newest ability on Astrologian, and really the only real new feeling ability on Astrologian. And other than that, the only thing we really need to talk about is the cards. Now, I have a little rant about the cards. I might as well throw it out here. And I feel like when I started playing Astrologian, I really wanted the feel that, oh, Astrologian, it's really about getting whatever card you can draw and using it to the best of your ability to fit the situation. Sort of that tactician sort of feel, right? You get this card, you find a way to use it in a way that's effective to your party, and it really doesn't fill that sort of role at all, because it's really less about drawing the card and then finding a way to use it, as it is, when can I get my next balance? That's basically what Astrologian has become. Is can I draw the balance? Can I manipulate my cards with the abilities I have to get the balance? And once I get the balance, can I have ways to make my balance stronger? With things like time dilation, with Royal Road effects, stuff like that. And that's really what Astrologian boils down to, is getting the balance. It's really that's the main goal. Every time you go to draw a card, every time you go to redraw, every time you want to spread a card, you want to get the balance, because that is the most powerful card. And I feel like they could have done, I don't know. There's some things that they've done that just, you know, to make the cards more interesting, to make them more equal. I mean, the bowl, it's actually a really good card, right? Like, this is basically Rampart that lasts another 10 seconds, and that's without taking into account any Royal Road effects or any extensions that you can do with Slash Opposition, Time Dilation, whatever. This is a really good defensive cooldown for the tanks. You know, throwing this on the main tank is actually really great, you know, especially before a tank buster. And, you know, it lasts forever, you know, 30 seconds all on its own. You know, that's a long time. That helps with cleaves. That helps with mechanics other than just tank busters. So it's really, really nice to throw out, but it's just completely overshadowed by the balance. Again, with the arrow, for whatever reason, they nerfed the arrow. Back at the end of Heavensward, this used to be 20%, just like the balance. And, yeah, it was basically, I mean, the balance was still pretty much better in practically every situation for every job. But, you know, when I got the arrow, I didn't feel like I had to, like, not shy away from not spreading it. I didn't feel like I had to try and get the balance. You know, if I got the arrow, I was totally fine with using the arrow. And it's a real shame that they decided to nerf the arrow because, you know, TP issues are at an all-time low for most jobs, really. Like, the only time you're going to run into TP issues is if you're AoEing a lot. And even then, you know, all the melee DPS have goad. Machinist and Bard have Tactician. You know, it's like TP is not a huge issue. And MP, again, is not that big of an issue. All of the casters have access to Lucid Dreaming. Bards and Machinists, again, have Refresh. So it's like TP and MP aren't as big of an issue as they were back in Heavensward. So having the arrow up on jobs for extra DPS won't be that big of an issue either, except for the fact that it is now just considerably worse than the balance because it's only 10%, while the balance, for whatever reason, is still 20%. Like, it would have made sense if they decided to nerf the balance back down to 10% too. I don't know why they just decided to nerf just the arrow, but, you know, it is what it is. The balance is still the end game. I mean, the balance was still the best back in Heavensward, even with the arrow at 20%, and it's now clearly the best now again. And that's just kind of, I don't know. I really wanted Astrologian to get that more tactician feel, but the way it is now, I mean, they can't really change it at this point. There's nothing they can. There's no real good card effects they can really do to make all of these better. You know, like the spear is still pretty, you know, it's there, it has its uses, but it's not that great. And, you know, the ear and the spire, again, I mean, the ear is nice to use on yourself, but like the spire, it's completely pointless, honestly. It's just it's fodder for your minor arcana or your Royal Road effect, basically. Because there's never going to be a time where you're going to actually use the Spire to actually help anybody, because everybody has Goad. Everybody has Tactician. You know, so one of those people are going to have it, so I don't know. I feel like the cards are all the more less interesting than they have been, you know. Even with the Minor Arcana, I mean, it's nice to, you know, throw away your bad cards into the Minor Arcana, get a lady, get a lord. But as for actually using the cards, it's basically just the race to the balance. I mean, it's kind of always been that way, but I mean, I've never, back in at the end of Heavensward, I felt good about using, you know, the arrow. But now it's clearly worse than the balance, and I don't know. I feel like if they do decide to change the arrow back to 20% and make Astrologian even better, and that they probably won't, but I would definitely like that if they did. But yeah, that rant over, Astrologian is at an all-time high in terms of a job. It's very much in demand, I feel. You know, the shield healing from Aspect of Benefect is absolutely insane. You know, having that shield is just extremely powerful. Having the 15% healing potency on Nocturnal Benefect just passively is insane. Like I said, that's like having a constant Divine Seal. That is a ton of healing, even without having to take into account Aspect of Benefic. Just casting normal Benefics and Benefic 2s is extremely powerful, especially compared to White Mage. It's the same potencies, but again, you have 15% passive on Nocturnal Benefit, or even just 10% on Diurnal, that's still a huge difference compared to White Mage and Scholar. So like, just their natural healing is insane. I mean, don't get me wrong, the healing variety is definitely lacking in comparison to White Mage. You know, they don't have Cure 3. I mean, they have Earthly Star, but they don't have Cure 3. They don't have the Medica 2 and the exchange range or extended range on that, you know. And their MP issues are definitely more noticeable in Heavensward. I forgot to mention it, but they did lose Aether, but we basically get Lucid Dreaming instead, which is basically the same thing except it lasts 3 seconds less. You know, Aether used to last 24 seconds, Lucid now lasts 21 seconds. You can still use Aether with Celestial Opposition though to extend it 10 seconds, which is nice. And they still have the same cooldown. So definitely, if that's a trick you weren't aware of, it's definitely a trick you should try to use more often if you can, because it's definitely going to extend the longevity of your MP, especially since Lucid Dreaming is basically your only MP gain. You know, that once every 2 minutes is basically it, unless you decide to draw and use the Ewer on yourself. So yeah, Astrologian definitely at an all-time high. And you know, especially the cards too. Like I didn't really touch upon it, but a lot of the DPS in particular lost a lot of their buffs. Like even things like Bard, which had a ton of buffs, right? They're all gone. Like they can't cross class Internal Release, they can't cross class Bloodbath or Blood for Blood anymore. Hawkeye is completely gone from the game. You know, a lot of DPS don't have buffs anymore, other than what they naturally had with them. So like Dragoons have Blood for Blood still, Monks still have Internal Release, but that makes things like the balance and the arrow all the more valuable when you actually cast it. It's insane to think that you're basically casting a better Raging Strikes when you're casting the balance on somebody. And I don't know, it's definitely, I mean, compared to like something like what is it, like Chain Stratagem on Scholar, I mean, just having an AoE balance is just, it's insane. And the fact that, you know, we've kind of moved away from self buffs for damage makes Astrologian all the more better, and it gets shown in a higher light now. So I do think Astrologian is the best healer right now. I don't know if that's going to change with the balancing that they're planning on doing later. We'll have to see. But Astrologian definitely is a solid healer, and pretty much it's probably going to be Astrologian, Astrologian White Mage, or Astrologian Scholar basically from now on. You know, whereas it was always Scholar Astrologian Scholar White Mage. Now the tables have basically turned, because Astrologian, it's just too valuable. You know, the healing power is definitely there. The extra damage that it can provide, while it's ironically its own personal DPS capabilities are very lacking and kind of stale and boring. The amount of damage you can give with even just a couple balances in a fight is pretty insane. You know, White Mage doesn't have any of that, and Scholar, you know, you got Fey Win, I guess, and Chain Stratagem every 2 minutes. But you know, yeah, Astrologian is pretty great. It's pretty solid, and yeah. Even though I said this was going to be a shorter video than the White Mage one, it's still over a half an hour. But I think I covered everything I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, we should probably talk about Hyper Light Speed. So so it's the same premise as I gave with my White Mage in terms of stats. Basically, you want to shoot for Piety and Crit. Those are basically the two you want to pick. Whichever one you prefer more. Basically, one of those two is the one you want to shoot for. Now, I've had some people say, you know, why don't you use light speed more? Because I don't know, I use light speed very sparingly, and I think a lot of people kind of use light speed in a kind of a weird way. Like, they like to use light speed as a healing cooldown, which I don't really see it as a healing cooldown per se. I mean, it is a nice cooldown to use for two reasons, and that's for MP conservation, because it lowers, you know, MP cost by 25%, and it also decreases cast times by 2.5 seconds. Basically allows you to instant cast basically any of your healing spells except for like Ascend, basically. So it gives you a ton of mobility, and reduces the cast of your spells. which helps you conserve MP. But the problem with um, with Lightspeed, it doesn't actually, it's not really a healing cooldown, I don't really feel. And the reason for that is all it really does is it front loads your heals, basically. So if you're really in that dire situation where you need to get your heal out, you know, 2 seconds faster, then yeah, it technically is a healing cooldown, I guess. But it's not really a healing cooldown. You know, it doesn't increase your healing potency at all. It doesn't make your heal stronger in any way. That's what Sinistry's for. That's what Largis is for. So yeah, I don't know. And we got the trait Hyper Light Speed. Basically, it's very similar to the trait we get at 68 for White Mage, Secret of the Lily, except that this it's guaranteed to reduce cast time. Basically, it's only for light speed, whereas White Mage's was for Asylum and Assize. This is only for light speed, but it's guaranteed to reduce by 5 seconds whenever you restore critical HP. So it encourages stacking crit on Astrologian, and it gives a little more benefit to the enhanced benefit trait that you get back at 36, which gives you that 15% chance to make your next benefit to automatically crit. So it makes it so that your light speed can come off cooldown a little bit faster. You know, if you use this, chances are in the, like, what is it, 2.5 minute cooldown for light speed, which is pretty long, honestly, that you'll probably get a few crit heals here and there, you know, to make it come off cooldown, you know, maybe 10-15 seconds faster than normal. But yeah, it is there, but I don't really use light speed a whole lot to really notice this a whole lot. I mean, it's not going to, you're probably not going to get as many crit heals to give yourself another light speed, and even then, like, you use light speed at very specific points. You use light speed when you need to move a lot. You use light speed when you want to throw out a lot of, like, big AoE heals to help conserve some of that MP. But yeah, I don't know. That's there. Yeah, that's basically everything I wanted to talk about. So yeah, again, this was a thoughts video. I did give some opinions on things I would like to see change, but there was a comment I had on my last White Mage video where it's like, oh, you didn't really say much about you know, things to change and make things better and stuff like that. I mean, that's not really what I'm shooting for. I'm not a game developer. I'm just giving my thoughts on what I think about the job, and it's my signature to ramble on and go off topic and just talk and talk and talk. So you know, that's just kind of my personality and my style. So if you are looking for that sort of thing, sorry, I'm not really the person for that, but some people do enjoy it. So if you are a person enjoy it, then here's another 40-minute video for you to enjoy. And trust me, there's probably going to be another one tomorrow when I talk about Scholar, because there's quite a bit to talk about Scholar, unlike what I thought I was going to be able to talk about Astrologian. So yeah, I think I'm going to shut up now and stop talking. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like, or if you didn't, then feel free to dislike, I guess. And let me know your opinions on Astrologian, things you'd like to see changed as well, going into 4.05. If they decide to change Astrologian at all. I really don't think, of the 3 healers, and honestly of all the jobs currently in the game, I don't think they really need to touch Astrologian at all. I don't think they need to touch Astrologian. I don't think they need to touch Paladin. I don't think they need to touch Samurai or Bard, really. The big ones I'm really looking forward to, kind of off topic on Astrologian, but the big ones I'm looking forward to is definitely Scholar, Warrior, and Machinist. Those 3 in particular, I really want to see some good changes there, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. We just had that live letter this morning. I didn't actually watch it. I don't know any of the information that came out of it. I'll look it up at breakfast time, I guess. But yeah, I'm gonna go level Scholar some more. Maybe do some Susano and some Lakshmi or something later in the day as well to get familiar on Scholar. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. I'm gonna go do my retainers and go eat breakfast. So yeah, sayonara, bye bye.